All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll be a little more brief today. I have to head to D.C. for our African American Mayors Association meeting in just a few moments. So, good morning. And as always, I will start with where we stand in the fight against crime in Baltimore. As of today, homicides are down 25%, non-fatal shootings are down 30%, aggravated assaults are down 15%, robberies are down 23%, carjackings are down 22%, auto thefts are down 43%, and the women and men in BPD have removed 786 guns from the streets of Baltimore. We again know that this reduction is on top of last year and the previous year's historic reductions in violent crime, but the work continues. So for everybody who's in our comprehensive violence prevention plan ecosystem, every police officer, every violence intervention worker, everyone will continue to remain focused on this as their top priority. On Monday, as you know, I'll be delivering the State of the City at 6 p.m. to discuss our progress over the last few years and really last year and what comes next. We'll cover everything in the city of Baltimore, and I look forward to seeing you all there. The other thing I want to remind everyone that on Saturday, April the 26th, from 9 to 1 is the annual spring cleanup. So we want everyone to get out and get involved in their block, whether you're picking up trash, planting flowers or trees. Every action counts to make Baltimore a cleaner place, and we've been excited really to partner with We Chip In to offer fun incentives for those who participate. Call 311 to register yourself, your family, your child. Yes, they can get their part of their 75 community service hours as a part of the cleanup, and we'll make sure that we get everyone out there. And if they get assigned to be where the mayor is, tell them wear some boots because we're going to get really dirty. And with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Okay, we'll start off today with WBAL.
In the Board of Estimates meeting, you guys talked about the de-appropriation process and modernizing some systems. How does the city continue to modernize different systems and streamline the processes while being thoughtful and meticulous about it?
Yeah, I think that this is something that was huge for me when I came into office, because we know city government, even before the pandemic, was way behind. We had computer systems and technology that were being used by the city that the company that created them didn't exist anymore. We literally were the only people still using them. A lot of things were done by paper, and a lot of things were done in what I thought was outdated ways, which you heard us discussing with the council president and the comptroller this morning. On that particular process is how we've done the budget, right? We know that, thankfully, I was able to go out and get the support of the voters to increase the city's bonding, to increase the capital budget, but also we have to modernize those practices. So things aren't sitting on books for 6, 8, 10 longer years in capital projects, and making sure that agencies now will be budgeting for what they actually have, not what they're expected to get in grants and otherwise. And it's just another part of this really renovation, so to speak, of what we're doing with processes in the city.
There's also a lot of conversation with MOHS just regarding winter shelter. You talked about how the unpredictability of the weather, especially around climate change, and then also the unpredictability in our just put everything on Washington and all of that. And so we're already seeing an increased need in homeless shelter. You mentioned that there was already money in the proposed budget for a new shelter. Can you just expand on what that need may look like as moving forward?
Well, I can't expand on the proposed new shelter or anything because we have to get it approved first by the BOE and the council, about the council. But we know that we need space, right? Like we bought 2 hotels for space so that folks can get off the street and be able to have a roof over their head and have the services that they need. We know that this is an ever-changing thing. You heard from Director Simmons about folks that we are interacting with now who are experiencing homelessness for the first time. And I want folks to understand that sometimes folks think about homelessness as it's only impacting people with substance abuse and mental health issues. We know there is a lot of that, but there are also people sometimes who are working every day, who may lose their job, who may just fall on hard times, and they end up in that situation. And our job is to be able to have as much resources as we can possibly to address that. But when you're talking about winter shelter in particular, we can't predict the weather, right? And we know that our weather has been very extreme, right? Extreme hot in the summertime, extreme cold in the winter, but you don't know when that is. And what we have had to do is be able to stand up things quickly in an emergency situation when we've had to make some tough calls and decisions when it comes to the weather.
And then this question just regarding immigration, and the situation with Kilmar Garcia. We know that's in the hands of the federal government. We see one of our state leaders headed to El Salvador today to discuss bringing him back. What's your take on the situation?
Well, first, I'm proud of my senator. He has been someone who has been standing up for what this country truly stands for, and the Constitution and the things that were laid out in that document, and I wish him well on the trip. But I'm not surprised that the same administration that sees Mr. Garcia says they has no power to bring him back. When you think about what is happening, and when someone who was here, and we've seen videos of actual American citizens be stopped and put into custody and all of these things, that should not be happening. When you think about that, you can only just feel so bad for the family, but also when you hear the president say, oh, he may want to start doing U.S. citizens and sending them to El Salvador, and if they're going to do that, maybe they should bring back the people they let go from January 6th and send those traitors to El Salvador.
Next, going to Baltimore Sun.
Yes, I'm sure you've seen the UMBC poll. I believe Council President Cohen talked about this morning. Just the numbers for you. 47.
I know the poll. You can ask your question.
Okay. Since you consistently point to the lower crime numbers across the city, I'd just like to get your reaction to 47% of Baltimore residents who say the city's on the wrong track. Are they wrong?
Well, clearly the numbers would state otherwise, right? And I think that you haven't heard me say this before, but these ladies have. We know that polls are polls, but what's actually happening in real life, in real time, is something different. We know that people show whether they believe the city's in the right direction or not based on where they live. And we know that more people chose to move into Baltimore last year than move out. We know that homicides are reducing, violent crime is reducing. We know that investment is coming in. We can see what the world is starting to think about Baltimore. Even one of the leisure magazines talking about Baltimore making a comeback. We also know at the same time that the issues that our residents raise are real. That's why violence and crime is the top priority for me. That's why we're investing in our young people in our communities in historic ways. We're going to continue to do that. I don't need a poll to tell me that. We're going to continue to focus on those things. But what I will also challenge you and everyone else who has a platform or a mouthpiece, community members, media members, people like myself, elected officials, is the same energy that we give to negative things in Baltimore, we should give to the positive. The same way organizations run stories about violence when things happen, and how if for example, if homicides were up 25%, it would literally be leading every single solitary day. Now that they're down 25%, we barely hear peep. Let's run it for 6 months every day like we ran it back in the day when things were going the other way. Let's say that. Let's say city coming back instead of city in crisis, right? Let's put that message out there. Never not telling the truth, right? Because you hear me say this to you every week. Even these numbers are still too many people that we're losing. But we're talking about significant and historic progress. We're talking about this being the lowest amount of people killed in Baltimore through this time frame in 50 years. That's 9 years before I was born. We have to have the same energy for all the things that are going the right way as well.
Next question, Fox 45.
Good.
Next question, Banner.
Mayor, last week you made an appearance on C4 and you were asked about the lack of Key Bridge funding going from the Baltimore Community Foundation to Key Bridge victims' families. and you had said at the time that you found that, the Kennedy Foundation was not being truthful. Later that day, you put out a joint statement with the Community Foundation.
yes.
Okay. That said you were going to work together in the future. I'm just curious what led to this change in posture on this issue,
Oh, well, there's no change in posture. What I said on C4 still and will always be true. And I think that, and Emily, I'm glad you asked that question, because I think that we have to be reminded of something in this case. Because we get into this thing where folks are like, well, BCF didn't do it because the city do it, right? Or why didn't the city do it? We have to be reminded that, by and large, we're talking about people who don't live in Baltimore City. We, as the city of Baltimore and my mayor's office of immigrant affairs, did this and stood up this fund even before the Maryland Tough Baltimore Strong Fund, because it was the right thing to do, to help our counterparts, to help people who went through something that we hope no one else has to go through, right? So this whole thing about it being the city's responsibility and that city should have been responsible for making sure that this money got spent, it's just a farce. But also, it's another attempt to always blame the city, even when we actually have literally nothing to do with it. We are doing and will continue to do what we have done because we are partners with our partners in Baltimore County and Anne Arundel County. We do have one of the families here in the city of Baltimore. We will be working with BCF to make sure that families get even more support. But as I laid out to your colleague last week, for our point, for the things that we control, which is that fund, we've been giving money to those families all the time. We've given them hundreds of thousands of dollars for things like their rental experience, food, all the other housing things like transportation, cars and transportation fees. And we're going to continue to do that as long as there's money in that fund. But we do want to work with BCF and those folks to make sure that there's more support.
I know you said that you're working with BCF. What kind of avenues have you identified? They've allocated part of the funds, or they say they've allocated all of it, maybe perhaps it's not all spent. Is there a possibility of clawing back any funds? Is there a possibility of raising?
That's not a question for me to ask, right? As I said before, I don't have a say-so on how that money is spent or allocated, but I believe that Dr. Sauls, on her word, someone who I've worked with and known since she was the chair of the school board back in the day, that, as she said, we were working together to figure out ways to further support those families.
I just thought about it. We're getting ready to approach the 10-year anniversary of the death of Freddie Gray. Where do you feel like the city has come from and gone since then, and what more do you think we can do to keep progressing?
Yeah, I think I actually talked to one of your colleagues about this the other day. We've come a long way, and we still have even further to go. When you think about 2015 and you think about that time frame, right? Even before the untimely death of Freddie Gray, there were folks like me and others talking about this big rise in violence that we had, right? And how we needed to change the way we thought around public safety. After his death and the unrest, those things got boosted, and we were able to see that. There were calls for changes in highway policing, right? At that time, we were 4 years into my crusade to have BPD be a local agency that we finally now have this year. But when you think about, especially around police reform, the year after Freddie Gray in 2016, we went from having 2,500 complaints to now down to 800. Use of force has been cut in half. We know that back then we had 12 police-involved shootings. Last year we had 4, right? In 2007 there were 33. We know that there's been significant changes that has happened. When you think about that neighborhood in particular, right? Vacants have been significantly reduced in that neighborhood. We can see the investment that even the city is making. Right now, later this year, we will open a brand new Parkview Rec Center right a 2-minute walk from Penn North. My Rec and Parks office and the city administrator have been meeting with Sandtown about how we're going to build a brand new Lillian Jones Rec Center as part of our next round of recreation centers that we're building. When you think about the partnerships that we have with folks like Drury Heights CDC and Upton Planning Committee, where blocks of houses that were vacant now have people living in them, like the Bakersview places and like we have down at Harlem and Emerson. There's a lot of progress been made, but you don't see me in a celebratory mood. because we're talking about a particular West Baltimore, a neighborhood that had been disinvested in even before the 68 riots after Dr. King. And we were never talking about an area that could just be changed totally like that overnight. We remain committed to the long-term change that we have to see there and across the city. But we are undoubtedly better today. BPD is better today. The city is better today. We're safer today, but there's much work to do.